Hey everyone, Temporal here, and for this one we are going to be taking a look at the playoff brackets that got posted for NACE earlier today. For those that don't know, NACE is probably at this point the largest third-party tournament organizer, season organizer that's going on for Overwatch, and we have previously reviewed the 10 regions that made up this season. We did that in a video that I've linked in the description below. So if you want to know, wait, how did you figure this out? How do you feel like some people got in? How did Mizzou get the #1 seed, for example? Well, they won their region, and it was one of the weaker regions, is how they got that. And ultimately, what we're looking at here is teams got out of the region either with the top spot or the second spot. And teams that got out with the top spot are going to be on top. Teams that got off with the second spot are going to get fed mostly to teams that got out with the top spot there. There is some going between, okay, if you won your region perfectly versus if you dropped some maps to win your region, that sort of thing. Or maybe you lost a match, but then won it in the play-ins type thing, and you were ultimately able to get through with the 1 seed. You're going to be seated lower than someone who went through perfectly. So some things like that. But we're first going to look at who's in here. Then we're going to make some predictions as to who can make it through, who can win, and we'll talk about the format in general. Hey, Neb, how you doing? How are you doing? Okay, so here we have Mizzou. Mizzou, we can see, got the 1 seed, and we can see their first opponents are going to be RIT Orange, Rochester Institute of Technology, and Illinois Overwatch, which is also Illinois Orange for those of you that are tracking the Activision Blizzard Collegiate Homecoming tournament. And I look at this, and this is interesting and exciting to me because Illinois Orange upset everyone's expectation and got through in their group. They would have been expected to be number 4 in their group, to just get beat out by both of the opponents in their group, but instead they were able to win through, beat out 2 people that the community at large predicted them not to, and get that second spot. Did they win their group overall? No, of course not. But they were able to do that, and that makes things exciting. When we compare that up against Mizzou, who they'd fight in the second round if they went against RIT Orange, and RIT Orange is not necessarily going to be free. It's going to depend in part on if Illinois Orange has really put it together, or if it's a situation where both of their opponents happened to collapse. That seems unlikely, but that's something we'd look at. So we see we've got RIT Orange here. RIT Orange isn't necessarily free, but then we've got Mizzou versus Illinois Orange. Mizzou absolutely could be scary. They won their region. They did good things out there in their group in Activision Blizzard Collegiate. I do know that they beat UNT, but they did lose to both Bay State and Northeastern and got eliminated. So they got the effectively number 3 of 4 spots, and only the top 2 went through. So there's potential that you could see a shakeup at the very top of this bracket and see Illinois Orange going through. And that would be kind of interesting. Like the 1 seed, maybe not really the 1 seed, in terms of we'll get to some more teams, but potentially the 1 seed going down to this, and then it would get to go through into here. And that would be very interesting. And what makes this super interesting is this quadrant, because as we see here, there's going to be a lot of teams, a lot of buys in here, but that's because it's a 20 team. There's 20 teams that got here, which meant they needed a round of 32. That's just how that works. But this quadrant here, these 4, don't have someone unstoppable. As we go through here, I will make no secret of the teams that would be considered the best teams in this tournament would be Bay State, University of Texas, Dallas, Northwood, and Harrisburg. We often refer to the teams this season as the Big Six, and added to those would be ISU, Redbirds, as well as, who are we missing here? Maryville. And ISU and Maryville are not in this tournament. ISU had a little bit of a thing. We've done a video on that previously where they sort of sent in their JV squad, but they call it a second varsity squad, and then ambushed Bay State and caught them with their varsity players by loading them up the day of to, not Bay State, excuse me, caught Northwood by ambushing Northwood, and that's why Northwood is down here with the 10 seed as the worst rated team that won their region, which is kind of a joke. A lot of people would consider Northwood the best team in this tournament. Others might consider Dallas the best team in this tournament, but Northwood took a loss that didn't affect their ability to win their bracket, but did, as we see, hurt their playoff seeding somewhat significantly here. So there's about 4 teams of the Big Six in here. That potentially gives some other people to make their way in for finishes in the top 8, the top 6, maybe the top 4, depending on how double elimination works out, that we wouldn't normally see there. So that could be interesting. Obviously, Mizzou is not one of the Big Six or Big Four in this case. So Illinois Overwatch, this is interesting, could potentially fight their way through, but then this quadrant doesn't have any of the Big Four players in here. Lords and Winthrop, absolutely, these matter, but both of these teams also got eliminated and did not make it to the top 16 in Activision Blizzard Collegiate. Lords previously lost a match to Waldorf in this NACE tournament, but then in the play-ins were able to turn it around and get that win, get that 3-2 win, and get in here and win their region. But they are not the unstoppable juggernaut that, say, a Harrisburg or a Bay State might be, or a Northwood or a Dallas. Similar thing with Winthrop. Winthrop was originally, they lost to Converse earlier in the season in this tournament, but then they put it together, they figured out what Converse's weakness is, or they looked at perhaps UC Irvine's notes to figure out what Converse's weaknesses was, and they were able to put together a 3-2 win against them in the play-ins. So overall, this looks like a bit of a weak quadrant, I'm going to say, of this tournament, of this bracket, and someone can potentially go deep and get through to here. So this becomes maybe exciting, maybe weak, whatever you want to think about it. You could see someone run pretty deep before going down to the losers bracket, which is exciting. You can get pretty far in the tournament like that. Moving on to the next quadrant, next quarter of the tournament here, we've got these teams here. GMU A team would have won their region. They had the weakest region. In there with them was this Shenandoah team. Nothing too worrisome here. These guys, of course, won their region, so they get a high seed. Bay State is going to win their region and go through here. That's not really in question. Converse should win their way through here. Bobcats, I expect to win this. Bobcats are going to drop to Bay State. And then Converse is very likely to drop to Bay State as well. So that's what we'd expect here. These guys aren't a joke. But ultimately, Bay State is going to win this bracket and put their way through here. And then Bay State will be playing up against whoever found their way through here. Again, this one could be interesting. It's really hard to get a proper power reading on Winthrop. It's been really tough to get a power reading on Winthrop this season, I'd say. They've been in this tournament's coaches poll top 10 a few times. They were quite high early. They fell off for a few weeks. They've been on towards the bottom end of it for a bit. It's really tough to get a read on how good they are. Lords in this tournament's coaches poll has mostly been hanging around somewhere between 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the bottom half, we'll say, but has consistently been on it. So I think people would expect that Lords probably finds their way through there, but in no way is that free. No one is by any means taking a 10% bet if they go, oh, it's Winthrop. It's definitely Winthrop. That's certainly a reasonable take in this case. But ultimately, the upset potential, or the interesting upset potential in my mind, would be Illinois Orange surprises everyone and forces their way through. Because again, they made top 16. Neither of these teams did. Groups are not perfect. You can end up in a strong or a weak group. You can have good or bad days. These are collegiate players where you're looking at situations where, hey, they were super tired. They had a long day at school. They had a project that was due. They were rushing back from midterm, that sort of thing. All of this absolutely happens. These are not athletes that get to spend 24/7 honing their craft, making sure they're 100% emotionally and mentally and, plan their whole day and life around the match happening. That's not something that they can do, but this is potentially interesting to see. If we don't see an Illinois Orange run here, I would suspect we'd see the Lords run into here. I would go for that, but ultimately we could see Winthrop take it. Mizzou does a good job hard prepping for teams. If Mizzou wants to beat a team, they will hard prep for them, and they could certainly be going, nope, we've got all the tape, we've done all the study, we can take this down, or we've put this on our hit list, that sort of thing. Everyone asleep or something? It's pretty late. A lot of my audience is EU, though EU is starting to get back up by now. But it's pretty late for some of my audience, the NA audience especially. It's 10 p.m. Pacific time, which means for the East Coast it's 1 p.m. or 1 a.m., excuse me. So we move down into the second bracket. We talked about our expected path here. We've effectively made our bracket. If we have to make our bracket right now, I'm taking the interesting bracket and sending Illinois Orange through here, and through to here. I'm putting Lords to win this. I think Lord stops here. Obviously, this might not be the highest party, but I'm making a bracket for fun. This is what I could do. If I went strictly with strength here, I probably would put it on Lords over Illinois Orange, and this becomes really tough to tell between these two teams. And this isn't free either. So it's really it's a bit of a chaotic bracket because there's not someone who's clearly a king coming out of this quadrant. This quadrant, Bay State will make it out. Converse will make it to fight Bay State. Bay State will beat them. Then we move into the third quadrant here of our tournament, and we see in our third quadrant that we've got UTD, and UTD would certainly be expected to do quite well in this tournament. And then we've got these two. These two both were second place finishers in their region. Really tough for me to tell exactly how that goes. OTSU didn't play in homecoming this season. They played in this tournament. Maybe they played in some other smaller tournaments, some lands, things like that. Ashland did, and Ashland did reasonably well. So let's guess Ashland here. Waldorf and Northeastern have a bye. Northeastern's going to win that. They are. Technically, these guys have had one matchup this season. It was early, very beginning of the season in the UGC tournament, and Waldorf won that 3-2. It's not going to happen again. We're going to beat them. Then we move on to, from there, we would have the expectation, of course, is Dallas will power right on through this, and then Northeastern, I don't know, uses magic and beats it. No, Dallas would be expected to win their way through here. Obviously, anything can happen. This is a tournament. Again, these are students. They cannot plan their entire full lives around playing Overwatch, even as varsity athletes. They have to make sure they're doing what they can in their classes. They have family, travel, Thanksgiving. Maybe they've left because this is when their Thanksgiving break starts at some schools, doesn't start at others. It gets complicated, and you never really know. I'm a bit behind, but I think it's important to consider Winthrop lost to Illinois in Overwatch Homecoming. Winthrop lost to Illinois. I know. I'm picking Illinois. You're behind, Louis, but I'm picking Illinois to make their run through two here before they ultimately go down to. I'm picking them to effectively win this quadrant. It's a bit of a risky pick, fun pick, but I'm picking them to win this quadrant. But you'll catch up with real time eventually, Louie. It's okay. Okay. Then we move on here. Again, smart money would be on Dallas, Texas to get through here. I have to say Northeastern gets through here. Dallas gets through here. Again, Collegiate. Anything could happen. People are, on their A games, off their A games. It's not quite as consistent as Overwatch League or even Contenders, just due to the fact that it's not double scrim block 6 days a week, that sort of thing, which really, really builds consistency. Then we move into our fourth quadrant here, and in our fourth quadrant, we see Boise and Northwood. This could be an interesting one. Boise is a very good team. They are not in the top 6 level, but they are potentially in or just outside the challenge the top 6 from the outside territory. I would not expect Boise to win this. I would expect Northwood to win this, but this will be an interesting second round match here. UNT versus GCU. UNT is going to win that. That's going to happen. And then Harrisburg is going to run right through them. UNT did make some headlines in the play-ins by taking a map off University of Texas Dallas. Texas Dallas, I believe, had a sub running at the time, but I don't believe that taking a map off Dallas is going to translate into taking down Harrisburg. But ultimately, we will see. Then we go through to Harrisburg versus Northwood here. Smart money would be on Northwood to power their way through. But this so far is the most competitive portion of the bracket, and that's because we have 4 of the big 6 in this quadrant of the bracket as opposed to 0 of the big 4 or big 6 in the first quadrant, which makes this the most competitive. We have very good team, potential outside challenger. Hey, this is the most competitive quadrant to start in here. As to how did this happen? Well, we know it's because Northwood got bad seeding based on the surprise loss to ISU's roster there. Louis, they updated the bracket like an hour, maybe 45 minutes after the bracket first got published. They changed it because people pointed out that there were some things that didn't quite make sense in how the seeding had been done for teams that didn't have map losses or had less map losses than other teams, something along those lines. So things got moved around a little. Aren't you glad you clicked the video? Now you know who your opponents are. Maybe I'd have been happier if you hadn't clicked the video, because then you wouldn't be doing any prep work for us over here because you'd be thinking you had a different opponent. But hey, I'll deal. So then we get on and we'll go out from here to our next round of bracket. And as we get on to our next round of bracket, here we've decided that most likely this becomes a Northwood makes it through. So that's going to put a Northwood here. And most likely that would be against a UTD here. So Northwood versus UTD. Okay, that makes sense. Nothing too wild there. Then we have a case up here where I'm going to pick again Illinois Orange because they took some impressive wins and have really surprised people and have really surprised people consistently in homecoming. I'm going to put them as making it through here. So Illinois Orange. And we would put that up against our Bay State here. Bay State will win that one. That will be the end of the Dark Horse Cinderella run, as we want to put it there. It won't be the true end. It'll knock them down to the losers bracket. But that's going to give us a situation where we have Bay State versus Northwood. So that would give us Bay. Oh, that's a very big tool to be drawing with there. That's going to give us a Bay versus Northwood for upper bracket finals. Not grand finals, but upper bracket finals. Bay State versus Northwood. And then again, smart money would be on. I'm not encouraging people to gamble here, though there's probably entries if people want to do so. I'm not encouraging it. Smart money would be on Northwood to then go win that. Bay State could certainly challenge. Bay State is in the Big Six. Again, Harrisburg could certainly challenge. Harrisburg could be the school that makes it through here. But if we were going sort of two expectations, this would be a Northwood makes it through, and my bracket would put Northwood making it through from here. From here, I could go do the entirety of the lower bracket. I think that's a little less interesting if I do the entirety of the lower bracket and constantly coordinate back and forth who falls from where, because that's a little challenging. So I think what's more interesting is instead we go, who's going to win their way through? Who's going to win their way through after we get eliminations, and we can work our way backwards. So as this happens, the school that we would expect to, or what we would expect to happen is, hey, we've seen that it's going to be Northwood versus Bay State. Well, who's going to win their way back up? Is that going to be Bay State runs into Harrisburg down in the lower bracket where they have to fight their way all the way through here? Is this going to be Bay State runs into Texas Dallas? And at this point, barring unfortunate absences, travel things like that, you didn't play the whole match against UNT because you had homework. Whoops. Yeah, I thought it was you that was out, Louis. I thought I remembered seeing you not on the roster when I checked in on that one. Had your off-tank player in. Yep, that'll do it. So I would predict that what happens here is we get Bay State and Northwood in the upper bracket finals. Bay State does then get knocked down, and then you look at this in terms of who is it going to be, and assuming we don't have absences, assuming people are here, my expectation would be that it's going to be Dallas that fights their way back through the bracket. And if we had to do that, let's take a quick look to where Dallas is going to fall from. Dallas would effectively fall from here, where they would have lost to Northwood, which would be U4.2. And can we get where U4.2 connects? No, we cannot easily pull U. Oh, can we get loss 4.2? Loss 4.2. No, we're not going to track that whole bracket and do that through. So that's what I'd expect, and then that would lead us to potentially, if Dallas were to fight their way back through Bay State, which would be something that they could do, not a guaranteed by any means, but that's a school that they could fight, and then challenge their way through Harrisburg as well. We'd potentially have as our grand finals up here as, challenge back up from the lower bracket as a Texas Dallas versus Northwood here. So that would be my current predicted bracket. I know I cheated. I didn't fill out every single team in the lower bracket here, but that's what I'm predicting. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm wildly off base? Do you think that, hey, no, that's wild, Mizzou is going to stomp on Illinois Orange? Do you think, whoa, 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 Bay State's been doing fantastic. Bay State is going to crush and be knocking these teams out. And what do you mean getting knocked to the lower bracket? Or, hey, Dallas has been looking weak in scrims. They're never going to make their way through. It's going to be Harrisburg that makes their way through. Or, hey, is there going to be some mix up, some flip up? Are we going to see what happens, that the real interest is down here in the lower bracket finals, lower bracket semifinals, where we're going to see a player that's not of those big four that makes it deep? Something like a Northeastern, something like an Illinois Orange, something like a Boise that goes deep and potentially finds themselves in the final four in this tournament because of a slip up or because of teams knocking each other out. What do you guys think? Either let me know in chat or throw your thoughts down in the comments below there. That said, if you guys are enjoying the content, please do drop a like. Consider subscribing if you have not already done so. If you're looking to get coaching, that is something I do both for collegiate teams. I do work heavily for Northeastern, but I also do freelancing for other teams. Or if you are looking to get individual coaching, which is also something I offer, you can join my Discord in the description below. So I'm not seeing anything else from you guys. I think that covers what we needed to, which is the brackets are out. Again, this is a tournament with only 4 of the big 6 in it, which lets other people play, especially in this upper quadrant. I think this will be a fun one to watch, who can fight their way through, of some pretty good teams, but not teams that just are going to crush out some of the competition there. Thanks, guys. Temporal out.